National Commissioner, whether they act with urgency and or not, whether they act against all of them and or not, has nothing and should have nothing to do with IDEC, because that becomes an internal process that must be governed by themselves. And so if at the time, even when they received, and I cannot remember the date, even when they received the situational report from IDEC, they still sought, if she wasn't already in office, to put her in office or keep her in office. That would have been their choice.
Yes.
Yes.
And what you're doing is you're telling the DPP that to get an arrest warrant, because that's what this memo is about,
Yes.
is an urgent matter. So the question is, why was it urgent to get a warrant? Why was it urgent to get them arrested? Because that's what this memorandum is about.
I think for me, Commissioner Baloyi, what does stand out in terms of memory is that it related to the abuse of authority that was committed against an organ of state, and that these arrests take place so that that abuse, alleged abuse, does not continue.
The abuse you're complaining about in your memorandum is they failed to comply with the instruction about employing this person. And you've explained that your briefing, your recollection, is you were told there had been manipulation of the panel of documents. So we're talking about, on this memorandum, you're talking about past activity, something that has been done and completed. You now want them to be arrested for that which you describe in paragraph 11 of your memorandum, because that's what you say is the problem. You want them to be arrested for non-compliance with that. And even your charge sheet speaks to past activity, except for that part where you say if she had been in office and continued to work, then she would have been doing, she would do what General Kumalo wanted her to do. That's the only future thing, but it's not in your memorandum. And working on the basis that your charge sheet, rather your urgent request for warrants of arrest and that they be arrested is connected to the breach of that national instruction. The question is, why is that matter that warranted that they be arrested or that a warrant is issued on an urgent basis? And it's not to say, we are not yet at the conversation about why arrest. It is, why was this urgent to do?
I just have that, Commissioner Baloyi.
All right. I think I'm going to ask you a question about the arrest itself, but I just want to propose to you that this again, without in the absence of an explanation, it has appearances about it that the idea was to get them out of office, because once they are arrested, I mean, standard practice is when people are arrested and are presented before a court, they can never continue with their work. I think it's exceptional cases where people have been arrested and allowed to come back to work. But it seems this was the design, yet again. Arrest them, present them to court, then they won't be at work. That's my impression of what happened here. Do you want to comment before I ask you a question?
When they were arrested, I know you and I are going to have a technical discussion about what in office and out of office means. When they were arrested, they were not removed from SEPs. They were not able to go to the office, but they were still able to carry out. They were not removed from SEPs. They were not able to go to the office, but they were still able to carry out their official functions. And I know technically, what's the use of carrying out your function in another place when you were supposed to be in one place? But if the motive was to remove them, then the ask would have been, in that letter to the National Commissioner, when you're setting out the situational facts, they pose a risk and must be suspended immediately. and that was not done. We left it to the discretion of the police on how to deal with it.
Okay, that's a different discussion. We do know that there's a bail condition that says they must never go to the office. We do know from the documents that are before us that, in fact, at least General Kumalo, I don't remember the others, the National Commissioner put him somewhere else, right, in the meantime. Put him somewhere else until the issue of his bail was resolved, and then he brought him back to his substantive position. So there was an effect that came out of the fact of their arrest. There was a consequence to it. But my question, coming back to my question, why was it necessary to have them arrested? You could have summoned them, as you did with the National Commissioner, to come to court, as you've done in other cases. And I ask you this question because in the ad hoc committee, this topic came up, and you said that there was no risk of them fleeing and not presenting themselves to court. Why did you sign authority that they should be arrested?
So on a point of correction, I don't sign authority for them.
I misspoke. Why do you sign a request? Why do you make a request? Because that's the sole purpose, in fact, of this memorandum under the heading recommendation. It is recommended that warrants for arrest of the persons involved in the commission of the offences outlined in the draft charge sheet be obtained. So you are asking for warrants of arrest, and we know it's history now. We know you got that request, they were arrested. My question is, why, if you go to ad hoc committee and you say there was no need, there was never any risk that they would run off, and Colonel Baloyi accepted that they could have presented, you knew where they worked, you knew their addresses, why do you make that kind of request that they should be arrested? And you would have had the discussion, if you were following the evidence of Colonel Baloyi, you would have had the discussion about the least intrusive means being the first, should be the first preference of presenting a person at court. Because the whole point of an arrest, if that power is not exercised maliciously, the whole point of an arrest is to make sure that a person appears in court. Here, on your own words in the ad hoc committee, you say there was no risk that they would run off. Colonel Baloyi accepts that you knew their addresses, you knew where to find them. Why does Advocate Johnson request an arrest and that these people should be arrested?
I know that at the time, even though it was not immediately in that time, that we had a lot of debates, and there were criticisms where we invited persons to hand themselves over. And we were seen to be selective when we asked people to hand themselves over. When we got the warrants of arrest, it was a method to secure their attendance. However, the manner in which their attendance was secured was we didn't go and arrest them where they were. I'm just explaining, I'm not saying that it makes it any better. The investigators called the different suspects, asked where they were, asked if they would hand themselves over, how much time they needed, told them where to come. And the actual execution of the arrest only took place then at the police station, and that was the means of then securing their attendance. But the process before that sought to be collegial and to ensure that they'll get to us as they get to us within the time frames they give us, that they should indicate what they need, that they contact their lawyers, etc. It wasn't, the process didn't seek to embarrass anyone. It
did, because with another witness previously, there were pictures that were circulated of General Kumalo in handcuffs. So there's no, and in fact, the very fact itself of an arrest is traumatic for any person. So you cannot sit there and seriously say, well, because of how we did it, that mitigates anything. It doesn't. If you accept that as a matter of law and fact, there was no compelling reason to arrest these people, to bring them to court. If you accept that, then you must accept that it was a misuse of the power and discretion to arrest, because its sole purpose is to bring a person to court. And if you have other ways of bringing them to court, that must be the default. And that is a default that is not only about respecting human rights, but we live in a society where you cannot infringe, you cannot breach the law, infringe human rights, take the most intrusive action and then say, well, at that time we were subject to criticism in other cases that we are selective. Then that's an admission that you used that process of bringing a person to court for a purpose other than what the law permits and prescribed should be used for. So you in fact concede in your long explanation that that power was used for a purpose that had nothing to do with ensuring that these people do come to court. What do you say to that?
I hear Commissioner Baloyi's explanation, and I'm saying that is the route we followed.
Did they appear in
your
court?
Argument
Okay.
that it was not, there are less intrusive means.
Yes,
that
and that
should
and
have
that,
been used.
Yes, and that it was an abuse of that process that's available to you.
I'm not taking it further than that.
You accept that?
I accept it.
Did they appear in court on the same day? Do you remember offhand?
I can't remember offhand. I'll have to check.
All right, but most importantly, it is you accept that in these circumstances, an arrest was not necessary. They could have been summoned to appear in court whenever you eventually presented them to court, and there would have been no harm to the state, to the state's case.
I accept.
You accept that? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. On that score, then let's go. You recall you effected corrections and amendments to your original October 25 statement. And in that statement, you deal with the arrest of General Kumalo. We now have deleted the entire paragraph 14, and in fact 15, and replaced it with what you set out in your third statement at paragraphs 10.1 and 10.2. Your third statement, page 3. So we will work off the latest version. So your new paragraph 14 regarding General Kumalo's arrest, you state that Lieutenant General Kumalo was arrested after he had landed at Oliver Reginald Tambo International Airport, Otia. I do not recall where he was traveling from. I was informed that at the time his co-accused had already been invited to report to Brooklyn Police Station. If whoever the arresting officers were aware that he was traveling from somewhere to Joburg, why was he not given the courtesy like others to report to Brooklyn Police Station upon his arrival in Johannesburg? Why did it become necessary to go to set up a welcome party, a welcome delegation for him? Because you stated in your new paragraph 15 then, the investigators went to Otia to inform General Kumalo that there was a warrant of his arrest and for him to hand himself over. But that doesn't make sense. They didn't go there to inform him so that he can walk himself to Brooklyn Police Station. They actually went there to arrest him. So basically what I suggest, in your new paragraph 14 and 15, you try and downplay the arrest by suggesting that as with his co-accused, he was invited to report to Brooklyn Police Station, and I'm saying it's not correct. Factually, we know that is not correct.
Sorry, Counsel, which part is not factually correct?
That they had gone to Otia to invite him, as they did with his co-accused,
Yes.
to report himself to Brooklyn Police Station.
But that is what they did.
No, they went to arrest him.
No, they called all of the accused.
Yes.
And sorry, they were not accused. Called all of the suspects and invited them to hand themselves over at Brooklyn.
Can you stop there? Was the same courtesy extended to Lieutenant General Kumalo?
That is what I understand. They went to...
That's not what you have in your
They
statement.
went to Otia to inform him that there is a warrant for his arrest, for him to hand himself over, and he then accompanied them to the Brooklyn Police Station.
Then I must accept that, in respect of all six, this is time that's putting pressure. I accept that the arresting officers went to all their homes and offices and told them to please leave their offices and go to Brooklyn. It can only make sense in that manner. Because otherwise, I suggest, to invite them to report must be by means other than physically going to them. So you either call, send a message, send an email, some other form of communication. And my argument is, if IDEC was able to extend that courtesy to all other six, did it do so in respect of Lieutenant General Kumalo, such that if he says, oh, I'm out of town, when are you coming in? I'm coming in this afternoon. As soon as you arrive, please present yourself to Brooklyn Police Station. That's all it took. But it doesn't sound like you did, or by you, I mean IDEC did.
The investigators would be best able to answer only because they had that direct engagement with him and had the direct engagement with the rest of the accused.
But you have offered in your statement how they came to appear at Brooklyn
Because
Police Station.
I needed to account, and this is
Yes.
the account that I was given.
And so too must you accept that the purpose of going to Otia upon his arrival was not to inform him. I have a sneaky suspicion that he's got a telephone, he's got a cell phone, that somebody within IDEC, the number may have, including yourself, considering his seniority. And that was easy to call him, to send him a message, a WhatsApp, Signal, what is the other new one? The Swiss one, we learned something.
Okay, I don't know about the Swiss one, but
I learned.
I take your point.
Yes.
I take your point.
I'm saying, actually what you're stating, it's a rather misleading. They went at the airport to arrest him, period. They went there to arrest him. And by arresting, it doesn't mean they have to speak gruffly to him. They could be very well nice. But at that point, he no longer had an option to go anywhere but straight to Brooklyn Police Station. That in any language constitutes an arrest. Would you accept that?
I'm accepting your point.
Thank you. That now, as I understand, that was, I call it the first arrest, and not that there was a second, but I do so to distinguish it from what I call the aborted arrest, the one of June 18th. Yes, June 18th? 2020, thank you. Now, the one of June 18th is in respect of docket 543/06/26, the second docket. Now, it was not that arrest or application for those warrants. They were not in any manner prompted by the arrest of Mr. Fadil Adams by the PKTT. No, there is no connection between the two?
No.
Okay. Did you ever have a conversation with DPP Advocate Harrison from KZN regarding Mr. Adams's arrest, whether impending arrest, issue of arrest warrant, or his actual arrest? Did you ever have a conversation, whether it's orally, by WhatsApp, email, whatsoever? Did you have any communication with DPP Harrison regarding Mr. Adams's arrest?
I did. I also think I wrote her a letter. The gist of the conversation was just to indicate, I'm not sure if you are aware that Mr. Adams is a witness and in an IDEC matter. And I just wanted to know whether or not he's going to be arrested, just so that we know how to handle him, because we are one NPA. It's actually in a letter, and I think it's best that I make that letter available.
Yes, please.
I was already told I'm overdue in my office, so I'm going to go there when I have time this afternoon, and hopefully still have access to the emails. I did write her a letter, and I made it very clear in the letter, and I think that is why it's important the Commission get the letter. I said, I surmised, but I said, I do not want her at any stage to think that IDEC is indicating that he should not be arrested if he committed a crime. I just thought that because it was open knowledge that he was a witness to IDEC, just give us a heads up, because witnesses become difficult and they become difficult to manage. It is on that basis and that basis alone. And the letter is very clear about that.
Yes. But why do you address that inquiry to the DPP and not to the agency arresting him, the PKTT? What does the DPP have to do with that? How would she potentially assist you?
The DPP would then be able to, when we write, we engage in that way. I write to the DPP. If she wanted to know something that was happening in Pretoria, she would write to the DPP in Pretoria, and the DPP goes ahead and finds out if there is such a matter and who's dealing with the matter and what the matter is about. And the DPP was able to find out and indicated not the details, but that they were looking at a matter, there was a criminal matter, and we left it at that. We did not engage again. And after that, we did see the arrest as it happened.
I still don't understand how she would assist you, because at that time, if she would have been involved in any manner, might have been by authorizing the issue of the J50s. So as I think of things, that's the only issue you would have been talking to her about. But to find out why this person is arrested, you are directing the query to a wrong person. It should be to the agency that arrested him, which is the PKTT. Are you sure you are not engaging here to find out who authorized those J50s?
No.
Okay.
She didn't indicate that there were any J50s at the time either. There was nothing to engage about the J50s.
Okay. Because I'm still at a loss as to why you could potentially call the DPP following an arrest of a suspect in a matter that is not on your table.
It wasn't following the arrest.
Regarding the arrest, whether it was before, during, or after. I don't see it. I correct myself. I take your correction.
So because we've had challenges in other matters where an agency arrests a witness.
The DPP did not arrest him.
An agency arrests a witness in another matter, and that matter becomes prejudiced because the witness now no longer wants to testify in a matter where they have been a witness for quite some time and want to know from you, the team for whom they are going to be testifying, why didn't I know I was going to be arrested? We don't know all their cases. What it is it becomes a bit difficult to manage the relationship. And so within the NPA, we have undertaken to at least inform one another, not dictate, is to just indicate the person you arrested is my witness, and that is it. And that is where we've taken it, and that is where we leave it.
Okay.
It's not the first matter.
I guess my challenge is I don't see how a conversation with the DPP would go where you say to the DPP, the person you arrested, because the DPP didn't arrest that person. So how that conversation even starts to land where you suggest it did, I can't wrap my mind around, but I'll catch up. It's exhaustion, perhaps. Okay. We have reached our crisis point, which is that it's 13:02.
And I can hear the chair whispering there.